Tonight, Kanye West is not here, which feels appropriate, because Kanye West rarely shows up the way people expect him to. He arrives early, late, or sideways, but almost never on time. And that's not chaos. That's intention pretending to be chaos. Kanye West doesn't just enter rooms, he disrupts the architecture. Most artists want to be understood. Kanye West wants to be felt. There's a difference. Understanding is calm, feeling is overwhelming. Kanye chose overwhelming. Now pause for a second. This isn't about liking him or defending him. This is about why his presence feels unavoidable. Because even when he's quiet, people are still reacting to the last thing he said. That's delayed impact. And delayed impact is a sign of something powerful. Kanye West lives in the echo. Most people shout and hope something sticks. Kanye speaks and lets the shockwave do the work. Now let's talk about confidence. Kanye's confidence isn't reassuring. It's confrontational. He doesn't say, "I believe in myself." He says, "Believe in me." That makes people uncomfortable, because confidence is supposed to be modest. Kanye's confidence is loud, unapologetic, and allergic to permission. But here's the part people miss. That confidence didn't appear randomly. It was built in opposition. Kanye spent years being told he didn't fit, didn't look right, didn't sound right, didn't stay in his lane. So he did something radical. He rejected lanes entirely. Now think about creativity. Most creatives specialize. Kanye expands. Music, fashion, architecture, culture. Expansion looks like ego until it works. Then it looks like vision. And vision is just ego that survived reality. Kanye West survives reality by reshaping it. When reality pushes back, he pushes harder. That resistance creates momentum. But momentum without restraint becomes instability. And instability is where Kanye's story becomes complicated. Now let's talk about genius. Genius is romanticized. We love the idea that brilliance comes with chaos. Kanye West feeds that narrative. He doesn't correct it. In fact, he amplifies it. Because chaos creates myth, and myth creates attention. But myth is dangerous when it replaces accountability. Here's where things get uncomfortable. Kanye West's openness sometimes crosses into self-sabotage, not because he lacks intelligence, but because control isn't his priority. Expression is. Most people manage themselves to protect stability. Kanye manages stability to protect expression. That trade-off is rare and costly. Now think about attention again. Kanye doesn't just attract attention, he provokes it. Provocation forces reaction. Reaction creates relevance. And relevance in modern culture is survival. Kanye West understands that instinctively. He knows that silence is the one thing he cannot afford for long. But unlike Trump, who escalates noise methodically, Kanye escalates emotion. Emotion is unpredictable. And unpredictability keeps people watching. But it also burns bridges. Now let's talk about vulnerability. Kanye West is vulnerable. But not gently. He exposes thoughts before they're fully processed. Most people edit first. Kanye publishes raw drafts. That rawness feels honest. But honesty without reflection can hurt more than it heals. Now here's the late-night irony. People say Kanye lacks self-awareness. But self-awareness isn't the problem. Regulation is. He feels everything intensely. And intensity without regulation creates volatility. Volatility is exciting until it's exhausting. And exhaustion changes how the audience responds. At first people lean in, then they pull back. Not because they stopped caring, but because caring became too heavy. Now think about legacy. Legacy requires consistency. Kanye resists consistency. He reinvents constantly. Reinvention keeps him relevant. But it also fragments his story. There's no single Kanye. There are versions. Each one louder than the last. Each one more uncompromising. Now pause again. Is that freedom? Or is that pressure? Because when your identity depends on disruption, stillness becomes dangerous. Kanye West doesn't rest in stillness. He moves. Constantly. And movement prevents reflection. Reflection might ask questions he doesn't want to answer yet. Now let's talk about audience responsibility. Because Kanye doesn't exist in a vacuum. We reward spectacle, we amplify breakdowns, we mistake chaos for authenticity, and then act surprised when chaos escalates. Kanye West didn't invent this dynamic, he embodies it. And embodiment is uncomfortable to watch, because it reflects back at us what we consume. Now here's the late night question. What happens when creativity becomes inseparable from conflict? When art requires friction to exist? Kanye West is testing that limit in real time, and we're all watching. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's unresolved. Unresolved stories hold attention longer than happy endings. Kanye West understands that. He leaves things open, provocative, incomplete, and incompleteness is addictive. Now pause here. Does this feel like brilliance or burnout waiting to happen? Because those two often look identical from a distance, and Kanye West lives inside that distance. Now let's talk about control, because this is where Kanye West's story stops being entertaining and starts being fragile. Control is not about silencing yourself. It's about knowing when not to amplify every thought that passes through your head. Kanye West amplifies everything. That used to feel revolutionary. Now it feels exhausting. There's a moment in every creative life when freedom turns into obligation. When you're no longer expressing yourself, but performing your own unpredictability. Kanye crossed that line quietly, and once you cross it, there's no applause loud enough to pull you back. Now think about speed. Kanye moves fast. Thoughts become statements. Statements become headlines. Headlines become identity. There's no pause in between. And without pause, there's no filtration. Filtration is what turns impulse into insight. Kanye skips that step, not because he can't reflect, but because reflection slows momentum. And momentum is the only thing keeping the system alive. Now let's talk about isolation. When you position yourself as singular, you eventually stand alone. Kanye West doesn't collaborate gently. He dominates rooms. Dominance feels powerful until no one pushes back. And without pushback, distortion sets in. Ideas go unchallenged, beliefs harden, contradictions multiply. That's not madness. That's what happens when influence outpaces feedback. Now consider responsibility. Influence carries weight whether you acknowledge it or not. Kanye West often rejects responsibility as a limitation on creativity. But responsibility doesn't limit expression, it contextualizes it. Without context, expression becomes noise, and noise eventually collapses under its own volume. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Kanye West doesn't lack talent, he lacks containment. Containment is what allows brilliance to survive time. Without it, genius burns bright and then burns out. Now think about identity. Kanye reinvents constantly. Reinvention can be growth, but it can also be avoidance. When reinvention happens too fast, it prevents integration. You never sit with who you were. You just move on. That creates fragmentation, and fragmented identity is unstable under pressure. Now let's talk about audience fatigue. People don't stop watching Kanye because they stop caring. They stop because caring became heavy. Every appearance demands reaction. Every statement demands defense. Eventually people step back, not out of indifference, out of self-preservation. That's the quiet danger of living in constant provocation. You train people to expect intensity, then intensity becomes baseline, and baseline excitement is impossible to sustain. Now think about silence again. Silence could save Kanye, but silence requires trust. Trust that relevance won't disappear. Trust that creativity doesn't need constant proof. Kanye doesn't trust silence. Silence feels like erasure, so he fills it, again and again, until the filling becomes the message. Now here's the late-night realization. Kanye West is not losing relevance, he's fighting time. Time asks different questions than fame does. Time asks about coherence, about growth, about what remains after the noise fades. Kanye answers time with volume, but time doesn't listen to volume, it listens to patterns. And patterns reveal whether chaos is being transformed or simply repeated. Now bring this back to you, because this isn't just about Kanye, it's about the danger of mistaking expression for freedom. Freedom isn't saying everything. Freedom is choosing what's worth saying. Kanye West built a career on refusing limits, and that refusal gave us brilliance. But it also removed guardrails. Guardrails don't stop movement, they prevent collapse. Now imagine what would happen if Kanye chose containment instead of escalation. If he paused long enough to integrate rather than provoke. That version of Kanye would be less explosive, but far more enduring. Now here's the final late-night thought. We romanticize chaos because it looks like truth, but truth without structure doesn't last, it overwhelms. Kanye West showed us how far expression can go without restraint, and in doing so, he also showed us where it breaks. This isn't a condemnation, it's an observation. Brilliance needs boundaries, creativity needs containment, and freedom, without discipline, eventually turns into obligation. Kanye West is still brilliant, but brilliance alone isn't enough to carry a lifetime. What carries a lifetime is knowing when to stop. And knowing when to stop might be the hardest form of control of all.